Yeah.
Imagine logging into Amazon, right? You're finally about to publish this book you've been working on forever, and you hit a literal wall.
Right.
The system completely stops you because people are publishing so fast now, using so much automated help, that Amazon actually had to limit authors to publishing just 3 books a day.
Yeah, I mean, it's a staggering metric when you think about it.
It's
It
crazy.
really is. When a platform has to implement a daily speed limit of 3 books per author, it just tells you everything you need to know about the sheer scale of the modern market.
Yeah,
And we are currently looking at roughly 1.4 million new books hitting Kindle Direct Publishing, or KDP, every single year.
every single year. Wow. Welcome to the deep dive, everyone. Look, if you are sitting on a half-finished manuscript right now, or you've been thinking of using AI to finally build a publishing business, our mission today is to save you from years of wasted effort.
We are taking you into a comprehensive, brand new source. It's the excerpts from the 2026 edition of the AI Self-Publishing Bible by Jens Bellner. Okay, let's unpack this, because for a long time, the dream was really just about bypassing the traditional publishing gatekeepers, right?
Right, getting past the big agents and publishers.
Exactly. But according to our source, those gatekeepers aren't just bypassed anymore. They're functionally obsolete.
Yeah, they're completely obsolete for the vast majority of authors. But, the removal of those gatekeepers means we've really just traded one barrier for another.
Makes sense.
The barrier used to be getting permission to publish.
Yeah.
Today, the barrier is just sheer volume, the noise. So what we're unpacking today isn't some get-rich-quick AI scheme.
No, not at all.
Right. It is a highly rigorous, entirely data-backed operating system for modern creators, because you really have to understand the arena you're entering before you just start playing with the tools.
And understanding that arena, I think, starts with ignoring those terrifying headlines about author income.
Oh, absolutely.
You always hear these stats like, oh, 75% of self-published authors make under $1,000 a year. But the source points out how wildly misleading that actually is.
It's incredibly misleading.
It's like, okay, measuring every single KDP account to gauge author income is like trying to measure the average income of a business by looking at every registered LLC in the country.
Right. You're counting the dead ones.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You're including abandoned businesses, tax shelters, the LLC somebody started for a hobby back in 2011 and completely forgot about. It's not a real picture.
No, it's a fundamentally flawed metric.
Yeah.
And honestly, it just discourages new writers. Because when you isolate the active professional indie authors, the people who actually treat this as a daily business, the median income is $13,500 a year.
Which is pretty solid.
It is. It actually beats traditionally published authors.
Right.
And the mean income is a staggering $82,600.
Wow.
Yeah, and that's pulled up by this long tail of top earners who are bringing in anywhere from $250,000 to over $2 million a year.
Okay, so the source breaks down exactly what separates those top 10% of earners from everyone else. And it's not pure luck,
No.
and it's not some secret algorithm hack either. It basically comes down to 3 operational metrics. First, catalog size. They have 25 or more published books.
Yep, volume is key.
Second is audience access. So they have massive email lists, like 18,000 subscribers or more. And third, they write in series.
Which is huge.
Right, because it multiplies the lifetime value of a single reader. If a reader likes book 1, they immediately buy books 2 through 5.
Exactly. Plus, you have to realize that you need to play the right game for your genre, right?
Yeah.
The economy of fiction is entirely different from nonfiction.
Like completely different worlds.
Completely. Fiction relies really heavily on Kindle Unlimited, where readers pay a subscription and just borrow books.
Right.
So authors are paid a fraction of a cent per page read. It's roughly $0.00043 per page.
That is tiny.
It's microscopic. So because that per-page payout is so small, fiction authors survive on rapid release schedules and incredibly high read-through rates for their series.
Yeah, that makes sense.
But nonfiction relies on an entirely different structure.
Because people aren't usually binge reading 5 books on, like, personal finance.
Exactly. With nonfiction, you have higher print prices, but more importantly, you use the book to build an ecosystem. The book establishes your authority, and then you use it to funnel readers into high-ticket courses or consulting or coaching.
Right, the book is just the top of the funnel. But speaking of, actually keeping the money you make, there is a massive trap hiding in the international mechanics of Amazon that I really want to highlight for you.
Oh, the tax issue.
Yes. If you are outside the U.S., Amazon's default setting is to automatically withhold 30% of your royalties for U.S. taxes.
It's brutal.
It's like trying to fill a bucket with water when there's a huge hole in the bottom, but you can fix that leak just by filling out the W-8BM tax form. That single piece of paper leverages international tax treaties and can often drop that 30% withholding straight down to zero.
It's such a simple administrative step, but neglecting it is easily one of the most expensive mistakes an international author can make.
Okay, but I hear these volume numbers, right? Like
Yeah.
1.4 million books, caps on daily publishing, and honestly, it sounds a little hopeless for a new writer.
I get that.
If I publish today, I'm just a drop in this absolute ocean of AI spam. So why even bother? Doesn't the sheer volume of mediocre content just drown out the good stuff?
It's very intuitive fear, but the source points out this fascinating hidden hack in how the system actually works. Amazon doesn't rank books.
Wait, what do you mean they don't rank books?
They rank signals of reader satisfaction.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, it looks at clicks, read-through rates, verified reviews. So a market flooded with low-quality AI spam content actually makes genuine quality much easier for the algorithm to distinguish.
Because the spam gets rejected by the readers.
Exactly.
Huh.
Every time a reader abandons a poorly generated book on page 3, the algorithm sees that and buries the book. The noise is actually your advantage, provided you're delivering real value that keeps the reader engaged.
Here's where it gets really interesting, because if genuine quality and reader satisfaction are all that matter to the algorithm, how do you know what readers want before you spend 6 months writing it?
You have to validate.
Exactly, because writing an unvalidated book is basically like cooking a massive, elaborate feast for 50 people without bothering to ask if any of your guests have food allergies.
That is a recipe for disaster.
Literally, you might make the best peanut butter pie in the world, but if your audience is allergic to peanuts, it's a complete failure.
What's fascinating here is that the psychological quirk of authors is that they are constantly baking those peanut butter pies without checking.
Yeah, we just write what we want.
Right. Human nature dictates that we write the book we want to write, and only after it's finished do we look around and go, hey, is there an audience for this?
Which is entirely backwards.
It is. The data-backed approach completely reverses this. Concept validation takes maybe 2 to 4 hours of your time, but it saves you years of writing something no one wants to buy.
So if I can't trust 5-star reviews because they're often just, blind praise, and 1-star reviews are usually just angry venting, where do I actually find out what the market is hungry for?
You have to dig into the 3-star review goldmine.
The 3-star reviews?
Yeah, because a 3-star review is a reader saying, listen, I fundamentally liked the premise of this book, B-U-T-T, and then they tell you exactly where the top competitors in your niche fell short.
Oh, wow.
Right. The delta between the 5-star praise and the 3-star disappointment is your exact differentiation opportunity. You take those reviews, feed them into an AI, and ask it to reverse engineer the unfulfilled desires of that specific readership.
That is incredibly smart. And you combine that with looking closely at Amazon's Also Bot section, right?
Yes.
Because that tells you who your true competitors are. For nonfiction, the source recommends this brilliant gap analysis trick.
Oh, the 4 trick. I love this.
It's so good. You search Amazon for your broad topic, followed by the word for, like productivity for parents or productivity for ADHD. It instantly shows you which audience segments are completely underserved.
Precisely. Because you are finding the exact emotional promise or the informational gap that the reader is searching for. And then you design your book's DNA to match it before you write a single word.
Okay, but how do we actually get the validated book in front of those people? Are we still just stuffing keywords into the subtitle, like productivity for parents, time management, organization, focus?
No, not anymore.
Thank goodness.
Yeah, the subtitle remains your most valuable real estate, but keyword stuffing is dead. Amazon's search algorithm has evolved. They now use an AI layer called Cosmo that actually understands semantic context.
Semantic context, so it reads between the lines.
Essentially, yes. If you write a fiction book about a grumpy Highland warrior, the Cosmo algorithm natively understands that your book belongs in the Highland romance category.
Even if you don't say Highland romance.
Exactly. Even if you never use the exact phrase Highland romance anywhere in the metadata, it reads the context of the words you use.
Okay, so the concept is validated. We know exactly what the market is hungry for, and we know how the algorithm categorizes it. Now what? Do we just open a blank document and start typing?
If you do that, You are heading straight into what the source calls the middle swamp.
The middle swamp, that sounds awful.
It is. It's that dreaded blank page paralysis where the story or the argument just completely collapses under its own weight around, say, chapter 7.
Yeah, we've all been there.
Right. You need an outline. It is the mandatory scaffolding that actually makes AI-assisted writing possible.
Let's break down those frameworks then, because they are totally different depending on what you're writing.
Very true. For nonfiction, the source outlines the problem, promise, proof, plan framework.
Okay, so the 4 Ps.
Exactly. It is essentially an argument map.
Yeah.
You establish the reader's pain, you state the measurable transformation they'll undergo, you prove your credibility to teach it, and then you lay out the step-by-step system.
And for fiction.
For fiction, you are building an emotional journey map. This could be the classic 3-act structure, or maybe a screenwriting formula adapted for novels, like the Save the Cat beat sheet.
Right.
That tells you exactly when the inciting incident or the lowest point of the story should happen.
And the source emphasizes that word counts are structural too, right?
Right.
Especially in fiction.
Oh, absolutely.
Like, listeners might have heard of romantasy, that massively popular intersection of romance and fantasy.
Probably popular right now.
The source notes a romantasy novel needs to sit between 80,000 and 120,000 words. If you hand that specific audience a 40,000-word book, it will feel incredibly abrupt and unsatisfying no matter how good the writing is.
Yeah, because readers have deep, unconscious pacing expectations based on their genre.
Right.
And this is where AI tools really shine in the planning phase. You can use a tool like Claude to generate a macro outline based on those structural frameworks. Then you have it break the outline down into chapter summaries and finally down to a very granular scene-by-scene breakdown. And you should also maintain a parking lot document.
I love the parking lot document.
It's a lifesaver.
It really is. It's just a blank page where you dump all those brilliant ideas that don't quite fit the current scene you're working on, so you don't lose your momentum trying to force them in where they don't belong.
Exactly.
But I have to push back here for a second. If I use AI to map out every single plot beat and every character turn, doesn't the book lose its soul? Where is the room for the author's actual creative discovery?
It's a very common fear. I hear it a lot. But it really misunderstands the purpose of an outline.
How so?
Well, the outline dictates what happens structurally. The prose is how it happens.
Oh.
The discovery, the actual soul of the book, happens entirely in the execution. When you know what the scene needs to accomplish, you're free to experiment with the dialogue, the tension, the sensory details.
That makes sense.
And to ensure that soul is intact, the source recommends doing a stakes audit on your outline.
Okay, what does a stakes audit look like in practice?
You basically look at every major scene in your outline and ask one simple question. What does the protagonist lose if they fail right here?
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and if the answer is nothing, the stakes are too low, and the scene is just structural filler. The AI can give you the beat sheet, sure, but only the human author can decide if the emotional stakes actually ring true.
Right. Okay, so the scaffolding is up, the stakes are audited, now we enter the actual drafting phase, the AI-assisted writing workflow, and the source draws a very hard line here.
The very hard line.
There are 5 levels of AI involvement, and you really have to pick your lane carefully.
Let's contextualize those levels because it's crucial. Level 1 is purely human writing, no AI at all.
Just you and the keyboard.
Exactly. Level 2 is AI augmented. This means you write the prose, but you use AI to brainstorm, outline, or research. Level 3 is AI collaborative. Here, you might write a rough scene and have the AI enhance the sensory details, or maybe you dictate and the AI formats it.
Got it.
Then level 4 starts getting risky. That's heavy AI generation, where you're really just stitching together AI drafts. And level 5 is fully AI-generated content with only light human review.
And the top earners, the people actually building sustainable careers, sit firmly at level 2 and level 3.
Yes.
Treating the AI as a replacement at level 5 rather than an assistant is basically a fast track to destroying your readership.
It will ruin your career.
And it brings up the massive question of disclosure. What does Amazon actually allow?
So Amazon's policy requires disclosure for AI-generated text. If the AI generated a block of text and you just pasted it into your manuscript without substantially rewriting it in your own voice, you absolutely must click the disclosure box.
Okay, but what if I just use it for ideas?
Right, so Amazon does not require disclosure for AI-assisted brainstorming, outlining, or copy editing. But the general rule of thumb is, when in doubt, disclose.
Better safe than sorry. And you have to pick the right tools for the job, too. You wouldn't use a hammer to drive a screw.
No, you wouldn't.
If you're looking for natural narrative prose and maintaining a consistent author voice, Claude is phenomenal. If you need structured frameworks or marketing copy, ChatGPT 4o is your go-to.
Absolutely.
If you are writing fiction and need to punch up the sensory details like sights, sounds, smells, Sudowrite is purpose-built for that. And Perplexity AI is mandatory for fact-checking because it searches the live web and actually cites its sources.
Yes, and that is vital. Because here's the thing about AI hallucination. It's a massive risk. The source states that up to 47% of AI-generated citations are totally fake.
47%. That is terrifying.
It is a critical failure point, especially for nonfiction authors. I mean, if you publish fake statistics, readers will catch it, your credibility vanishes instantly, and the negative reviews will bury the book permanently.
It's exactly like having a friend who is incredibly confident, very articulate, and will absolutely lie to your face just to sound smart.
That's a great way to put it.
If you don't manually trace every single statistic and quote back to a primary source, you are going to get burned. But on the fiction side, I have a totally different fear.
What's that?
How do we stop the AI from making everyone sound like a generic robot? Like, if millions of people are using Claude to collaborate, won't all the books sound exactly the same?
This is where you really have to protect your voice.
Mm-hmm.
First, you create a voice document.
Okay.
You feed the AI your specific sentence length profiles, your point of view depth, and 3 to 5 paragraphs of your absolute best writing to set a baseline. But my favorite tactic from the source for avoiding that generic robot sound is the enemy author technique.
Walk us through how that works because it sounds intense.
It's a brilliant prompting strategy.
Yeah.
Instead of just telling the AI what to do, you explicitly tell it what not to do.
Oh, reverse psychology.
Basically, you feed it anti-prompts. If you're writing a thriller, you don't just say, write a suspenseful scene. You say, do not use cliché weather descriptions to set the mood. Do not use melodramatic dialogue tags like he gasped or she shrieked.
I love that.
Do not summarize the character's internal feelings, only show their physical reactions. You can even name specific authors or styles that represent generic prose and instruct the AI to actively avoid them.
So you're fencing it in.
Exactly. By carving away all that negative space, you put guardrails on the AI's statistical averages. You force the model out of its generic comfort zone, and it results in a much more distinct human voice.
You are literally putting up electric fences around the cliches. I love it. So the draft is done. You've checked your facts. You've maintained your voice using anti-prompts. But it is still just raw material.
Oh, very raw.
How do we package this to actually stop a reader mid-scroll?
We enter the 4-pass editing system.
Okay, 4 passes.
Yes. You do not just read through your book once and call it edited. And you must do these passes in a specific sequential order. Pass 1 is structural. You are looking at the foundational bones as the narrative arc hold up.
Right.
Pass 2 is developmental and line editing, where you look at paragraph flow and pacing. Pass 3 is copy editing for grammar. And pass 4 is the proof, just catching typos.
And the sequence is critical there, right? Like you have to go in that order.
Oh, absolutely, because if you start with a line edit, you might spend 4 hours polishing the prose of a beautiful chapter, only to realize during the structural edit that the chapter doesn't even advance the plot and needs to be deleted entirely.
Ouch.
Yeah, you just wasted 4 hours polishing a mistake.
That's painful. For that line edit, the source strongly recommends using a tool like ProWriting Aid.
Yes.
You are hunting down specific prose killers. You want to eliminate throat-clearing sentences, those unnecessary lead-ins before the actual point is made. You're hunting for filtering words that distance the reader from the action, like writing, he saw that the car was red, instead of just writing, the car was red.
Exactly. Keep it immediate.
And you have to monitor passive voice. For genre fiction, your passive voice needs to be kept under 5%.
It really slows the pacing otherwise.
Yeah. Then, after the software, you bring in human beta readers. But you don't ask them, hey, did you like it? That is entirely useless feedback.
Completely useless.
The single most diagnostic question you can ask a beta reader is, was there any point where you considered stopping?
I love that question because that pinpoints the exact structural failure or pacing drop where a paying customer is going to get bored and just leave a 3-star review.
So true. And once the interior text is flawless, we hit the most critical marketing asset of all. The cover.
Oh, the cover is everything.
The source notes that a browsing reader spends fewer than 500 milliseconds evaluating a cover. Half a second.
It's just a glance.
And a great cover is responsible for a 4x to 6x difference in advertising click-through rates. And get this, Half of that success isn't even the image, it's the typography.
Typography is huge. It has to signal the genre instantly. Using positive letter spacing on your titles, ensuring the hierarchy is readable at thumbnail size. These are the micro signals that communicate professional quality.
Right.
For the core imagery, tools like Midjourney are democratizing cover art, provided you actually understand how to prompt for composition and leave enough negative space for that typography.
And finally, the interior formatting. Ebooks are relatively simple because they are reflowable. The reader chooses the font size on their Kindle anyway.
True.
But print books have a fixed layout. The source heavily recommends a formatting software called Atticus for most authors, and there is a non-negotiable rule here. You must use serif fonts for print body text.
Yes, absolutely.
I look at good interior formatting like a referee in a sports game. If the referee is doing their job perfectly, you don't even notice them. You are just completely absorbed in the game.
That's a perfect analogy.
Right.
Because if the formatting is bad, if the interior margins are so tight, the reader literally has to crack the spine to see the words. Or if you use a sans serif font in a paperback, it pulls them right out of the experience.
Yeah, it's jarring.
Sans serif fonts, the ones without the little feet on the letters, they actually cause tremendous eye fatigue on a printed page.
I didn't know that.
Yeah. The reader will literally get tired of reading your book and put it down, and they won't even consciously know why. If we connect this to the bigger picture, all of this packaging, the four-pass edit, the precise typography, the comfortable interior margins, it all serves one psychological purpose: building subconscious reader trust.
Subconscious trust.
Right. Before they have read a single chapter, a professionally packaged book tells the reader's brain you are in safe hands. The author respects your time and your money.
So what does this all mean? The gatekeepers are gone. The tools to validate, write, edit, and package a book are cheaper and more powerful than at any point in history.
It's an incredible time to be a creator.
It is. The barrier to entry has truly never been lower. But the barrier to success requires treating self-publishing like a rigorous system, not a lazy shortcut. You still have to do the work.
You do. And this raises an important question. And I think it leaves us with a final thought to really mull over.
What's that?
If AI can now handle the mechanics of structure, the heavy lifting of syntax, and all the pacing algorithms, perhaps the modern author's job is fundamentally shifting.
Shifting how?
You are no longer just a writer sitting alone in a room stringing words together. You are the creative director of your own intellectual property.
I like that.
The machines can build the house, but only you can decide what it feels like to live inside it. Your unique human empathy, your lived experience, your specific taste, those aren't just nice bonuses anymore. In an AI-saturated market, they become your only irreplaceable assets.
That is a powerful shift in perspective. From prospectors swinging pickaxes in the dark to creative directors shaping a deeply human experience. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive. We hope you take these frameworks and apply them to your own creative projects. Until next time.